All right, this week's Torah portion is Parshas Ki Tavo. And in Parshat Ki Tavo, there are, most notably, 98 curses that are awaiting the Jewish people if they don't do what God wants. And we see that in history, God has used this, how do you say, option that he has, and the Jewish people have certainly suffered through the generations, and sometimes for apparently, sometimes very severe things, but God has the option to do it even for minor infractions. He can do it because we owe him everything. He creates the world, creates us, give us the Torah, gives us the ability to serve him. He protects us, he loves us, he provides for us, he enlivens us. So we actually owe him everything. But he doesn't demand everything. But on the other hand, the little bit that he demands, if we make the minor infraction, he's got the right to do whatever he wants. But we see that he didn't. Usually the Jewish people have to really push him into the corner, God, into the corner until he actually punishes them. The first temple lasted for 410 years. In that time, there was some big time sins going on. Not all the time. Second temple lasted 420 years. In that time, there was also sins going on. All sorts of politics and hatred and things like that. But nevertheless, God never leaves the Jews. That's what we learned in Isaiah, all the prophecies of Isaiah. Despite all the anger and the that we arouse in God, he still loves us no matter what. That's the message is always in the end. Okay. So this week's Torah portion, before we get to these curses, as God says to the Jewish people, okay, this is actually Moses speaking, but Moses is speaking the whole entire book of Deuteronomy. So Moses says to the Jews, okay, God, when he took you out of Egypt, he made a big covenant with you at Mount Sinai. Sinai is also called Chorev, another name for Mount Sinai. And he made a big covenant with you, that he loves you no matter what, and etc. And now God's going to make another covenant with you. And he makes another covenant with the Jewish people right before they go into the land of Israel. Ba'arvos Moab, it says. Okay. So this is the language. Maybe we'll even look at the sentence in the Torah that says this, but let's. Hayom hazeh, today, Moses is speaking, right? Hayom hazeh, to this day, we're now learning the book, which is called Likuti Torah, a basic book of Chabad. How do you say? Workbook of Chabad. How to fix up the world, what the Jews are here for. And just to repeat it again, because it can't really be repeated enough. The purpose of the Jewish people, the purpose of all creation is Mashiach. Mashiach is going to be a person like Moses that's going to set everybody's minds straight and put everybody's attention to what's the real source of life and the source of good, the source of harmony and the source of our uniqueness. Each and every person is unique. The creator of the universe, the Almighty. And how he's creating us and he's loving us, because we're ignoring this or we get the thing wrong. So that's why there's all these troubles in the world, to the degree we don't even see that there are troubles. So that's the idea of Chabad. Chabad is here to wake up the world. Like Abraham. Abraham was the first Jew. Why was his name called Abraham? God changed it from Avram. He was a very high person. Ram means very high. To Avraham says Av Hamon Goyim, the father of all the world, to educate everybody. So that's what we're trying to do over here. That's what these teachings are, to explain to us what God is, what we are, what the world is, how we can unite the whole business. God and the world to make the world a place that's unimaginably, incomprehensibly good. Let's go. So it says that now the means of doing this, by the way, is the Torah. But without any doubt, the most important event in the history of the world is the giving of the Torah. The second most important event in the history of the world is the creation of the world. The world was created for the Torah. If the Jews use the Torah properly, then we'll see that really the most important event in the history of the world is the creation of the world. This physical world is the only place where the essence of God and the essence of God's purpose can be revealed. So let's go. Let's do it. So Moses says like this: Hayom hazeh, today, this very day, Hashem Elokecha, your God, your God, mitzavacha, commands you, lasot et hachukim ha'ila, to do all of these laws, ve'et mishpatim, and these statutes, v'shamarta, v'asit otam, and you should be careful, and you should do them with all of your heart and all of your soul. And then after that it says, Hashem ha'amarta hayom, God like made a covenant with you today, and Hashem ha'amircha, and God took you into his covenant, and etc. That's what it says, the Torah. Okay, what is this talking about? What is this talking about? Again, just straight English. Today, God, your God, commanded you to do all these laws and statutes, and be careful to do them with all of your heart and all of your soul. God made Hamarta, this is the Rashi says these are strange words, Hamarta, there's nothing like it. Torah, God like linked himself to you, and God linked you to him today. Today. Right? God is doing it all today. That's what it says near the beginning of our Torah portion. Maybe we'll have a look at it. Want to have a look? Why not? Let's have a look and see. Just so that we get oriented here to what's going on. How do we do this? 1 minute. 1 minute. This. Oh, there. And then we go there. And then we go here. Here we go. So it says, Moses commanded the people, and he said, do all these commandments that I'm commanding you. And the day that you cross over the Jordan River, then you'll make these big stones. You'll them, and you'll write on them these words of Torah, and etc. And when you cross over the Jordan, you will make these stones that I command you, and you will build an altar to God, and you will write on these stones, and etc. And 1 minute. Okay, so God said, I got the right place over here? No, did I do? Excuse me. Went too far. Went a little too far. Here it is. I'm sorry. Went too far. Okay. Hayom hazeh. I'm sorry, I jumped too far. That's talking about after they crossed. Hayom hazeh, this day, God commanded you to do all of these laws and these, etc., mishpatim, and you should do them with all of your heart and all of your soul. That's what we just read, right? And God, ha'amarta hayom, God like linked himself to you today to be for you a God, and to go in his ways, and to do his commandments. And afterwards it says, and God linked you to him today, that you should be a people for him, a special people, etc. Okay, all this whole thing comes right after this sentence. Look, it says, there's a commandment to bring first fruits, and when you bring the first fruits to the Holy Temple, so you say this whole beautiful sentence, which we say, by the way, on the night of Passover, and then it ends up like this. Hashkifa, we say to God in the Holy Temple, Hashkifa, look down from your holy place from the heavens and bless your people Israel and the land that you gave us, like you promised to our forefathers, the land that is flowing milk and honey. the land that is flowing milk and honey. And afterwards it says the sentence that we're beginning with now. To this day, Hayom Hazeh, God commanded you to do these laws and be careful to do them with all of your heart and all of your soul. God linked himself to you today to be for you a God. God linked you to him today. Okay, those are the sentences that we're learning. Good. So we put it into sort of proper context. Moses is telling the Jewish people laws before they enter the land of Israel. And he says you have to bring the first fruits, bikurim. You take them to the Holy Temple. You say this long, beautiful sentence about how you saved us, God, and you took us from Lavan, and you took us from Egypt, and you brought us now to the Holy Land. And we say, look down from your holy place, God, and bless your people and the land that you gave to us like you promised to our forefathers, the land that flows milk and honey. And then we have the sentence that we begin our Torah portion with, our Likuti Torah portion. Today, God commanded you to do these commandments and these laws, and be careful to do them, etc. All right, now we have it sort of in the proper perspective. Let's go. So this day, God is commanding you to do all these laws and statutes. You should do them with all of your heart and all of your soul. God linked himself to you today. God linked you to him today, etc. Today, this is all today. Why does he keep saying today? and it doesn't say which day it is. Look at the. Just say, God is commanding you to do this. God did. What do you have to say? Today. So it must be important which day it is. But it doesn't say in the Torah which day it is. Mishum, because the Mikra Mechuber, because this Torah sentence is joined. One second, let me make this a bit bigger. There we go. One minute. See, there we go. Because this Torah sentence is joined, it follows after the sentence that came right before. Remember, we just learned what's the sentence comes right before it. We said, God, look down from your holy place and bless the land and that you gave to our forefathers, a land which flows milk and honey. Shekorim shenichnasu la'eretz, before the Jews went into the land of Israel, Haya was kritat Brit, a covenant. God made a covenant, an agreement, al kabbalat Torah, on receiving the Torah, milvad, in addition to the Brit, the covenant that God made at Chorev, at Mount Sinai. What is a covenant? A covenant means something that will never stop, an agreement that will never stop. If I make a covenant with someone, it means that I really like that person. We make a business agreement. I really believe that he's true. We make an agreement, a compact, a covenant. A covenant means no matter what happens, we'll always remember this moment when we realize the truth, that we really are partners, friends, one unit, and it'll never stop. Never stop. A covenant means despite all difficulties, obstacles, nevertheless, we are always going to remain connected like we are at the time when we make the covenant. So God made a covenant with the Jews at Mount Sinai that he said, you are going to be my people. I'm going to be your God, no matter what. And here's another covenant that he made right before they went into the land of Israel. Beside the covenant that he made. What do you have to have so many covenants for? We'll see. That's what it means on this day, namely the day that the Jewish people went into the land of Israel. Therefore, it says Davash, it says Eretz Eretz Zvat Chalav Udvash Hayom Hazeh. Says the land that is flowing milk and honey today, this day. Havaya, right, to this day. And if you look, you'll see these letters are the letters of God's name. Huh? There it's Udvash Hayom Heyud Hazeh. So you have Yud, then Hey, and then Vav, and then Hey. Vidvash Hayom Hazeh are the letters, are the initials of God's name. Rosh Tevos Tziruf Hashem Achat, that the Vav of Udvash Sheba Parsha Rishona is joined to the beginning of year. You have to use the last word in the previous paragraph because it's all one thing. That's what he wants to say. Okay, so in other words, the Rebbe is clarifying to us that this, what he says, this day God is making this covenant, is the day the Jewish people went into the land of Israel. All right, now you could also ask another question: what do you have to bring the Jewish people into the land of Israel for? Just leave them. In fact, the Jewish people didn't want to go into the land of Israel. They wanted to stay in the desert and be a holy people in the desert, getting fed from manna from heaven and water from a rock. Why not leave them out? They would be a really unique people, huh? The only nation in the world that lives in the middle of the desert and is fed by bread from heaven. That would really be something, huh? That would show the Jewish people are really God's people. You could make tours, they would make a fortune just from tourism. People just coming from all over the world to see, here's a huge nation, 3 million people living in the middle of the desert, and by that time it'll grow, there'll be more people. And they get fed from man in heaven. You could come there early in the morning, see the man falling down, and everybody eating it, the water from Miriam's well. You could bottle it, sell it. You wouldn't need it. This is the Jews they had treasures they took out of Egypt, enough to last us for today for sure. That should be the Jewish people, huh? Leave them in the desert, they get food from heaven. That would be all. No, that's not what God wants. God wants the whole world to be holy. Like with Abraham, God wants the whole entire world to be holy. God is creating everybody. God is creating the earth just like he's creating the angels. But the earth, the angels appreciate it a little bit. We have free will. We have a free will to appreciate it or not. And God wants us to use that free will. So God made the Jewish people look like everybody else, in the world like everybody else, with natural desires. They don't get fed from bread from heaven. They have to be just like everybody else in order that the Jewish people will choose God. And God says, listen, I'm giving you help. I'm choosing you. I'm making a covenant with you. And that's why I'm putting you in the world, to show everybody how good the world can be. The land of Israel and this oneness of God and this covenant is all one thing. The whole thing of the land of Israel is Torah. The whole idea of the land of Israel, this is equivalent. This is the same thing as the oral Torah. What's the oral Torah? The Talmud, the Mishnah. What do these two things possibly have to do one with the other? The Mishnah is things that the Torah, the Talmud, is learned in the the yeshivas. Boys close themselves away, they learn the Torah. And the land of Israel is a land like every other land. It grows up fruits and things like that. They don't grow fruits in the Talmud and in the yeshivas. What's going on? Says the Rebbe, no, the land of Israel is holy. The land of Israel is manifested user-friendly holiness. And that's exactly the same thing as the Talmud is. Manifested user-friendly holiness. The Talmud talks about the most mundane things because the level of Yisrael is Adam. Yisrael is the whole thing of Adam, man. Oh, how does that work? We got the Torah and the Jewish, and the Torah is this, and then we have the land of Israel, and then we have man. Same thing. How are they the same thing? What does this mean? How could they possibly? Okay, let's say the Torah is God manifested godliness. So the oral Torah, Because the written Torah, you can't understand anything from the written Torah. Huh? The written Torah, you can make, you can permit anything from the written Torah. Right? It says don't kill. Maybe don't kill. 10 commandments. Maybe it means don't kill time. Huh? Maybe it means don't kill time. Killing people, it's not talking about that. It's talking about something. It's talking about don't kill fleas. They have to have the oral Torah in order to explain even the most simple things, the 10 commandments. You have to have the oral Torah. The oral Torah brings God's will into the world. That's what the land of Israel does, brings God's will into the world. Adam, same thing as man. How? Oh, this is what it says that Isaiah saw the prophecy, and his prophecy saw a vision. Ezekiel also, al damuta kisei, that he saw a vision of a throne. It says the throne is the spiritual level of Bria, some sort of a spiritual dimension of godliness, the throne. And on this throne was sitting like a man. The man is also a spiritual dimension, which is called Atzilut, another spiritual dimension. We'll talk about it more. Nevertheless, Vahu Torah Shebechtav, this that he saw, Adam, that's the written Torah. And the land of Israel, this is Torah Shebal Peh. This is the explanation of the Torah, the Talmud. They're really one. This is what's called the earth is my footstool. Even though that the main laws of the Torah, Shebal Peh, even though that the main laws of the Torah come from the Talmud, this is in physical doing, right? You learn the Talmud and you realize that what it says in the Torah, you have to put a mezuzah on your door. So it explains what side of the door and what exactly a mezuzah is. And when it says you're not supposed to work on Shabbat, the Talmud explains exactly what it means work and what it means, which day is Shabbat. Nevertheless, Harihi, Kamo Bechinas Regel, Sof Ma said the Bechinas Adam. Adam is like the written Torah, and the oral Torah, that's like the land of Israel. That's what's called the footstool. Footstool. In fact, the whole world is. The land of Israel is the example of what the whole world is supposed to be like. Ella, but what? The Torah, which is the man sitting on the throne, that's the written Torah. Yorda came down from a tremendously high place. Lamakam Namuch, the written Torah, which is the essence will of God. When God gave it on Mount Sinai, everybody's souls jumped out of their bodies. It was an essence, revelation of the essence of Hashem, right? The same revelation was in the Holy of Holies. Nobody could go into the Holy of Holies. If the wrong person went in, even if the high priest went in, he's the only person that can go in. If he goes in the wrong day, he dies. And even if he goes in the right day, he has a wrong thought, he also died. The written, what's in the Holy of Holies? The Torah, the two tablets. And it's so tremendously holy. But what? God brought the Torah down, he brought it into the world, and he brought it into human understanding because he wants us to understand what he's talking about. The whole purpose of the Torah is that we'll know what to do. When it comes down into the physical world, that's the thing of land of Israel. Then it's called the land that's flowing milk and honey. What does milk and honey got to do with God or the Torah or the Jewish people? What milk? Who cares about milk and honey? You can live your whole life without it ever tasting milk or honey. Some people say milk is not healthy for you. And honey, too much honey, no doubt about it, right? Why is the land of milk and honey? Dvash, the whole thing of it says there's a sentence in the Song of Songs, Shir Hashirim, Dvash v'chalav tachat lashonech. It says honey and milk were under your tongue. V'zeo, this is what's talking about Sitrei Torah. This is what's talking about the secrets of the Torah. Why are the secrets of the Torah called honey? Because they're sweet. What are the secrets of the Torah? The secrets of the Torah is the godliness of the Torah. God, you have to remember that God is creating me and you, and he's giving us life. Life is sweet. A person that's about to die, and all of a sudden somebody comes and brings him back to life, there's no happier feeling than that. He was about to die, all of a sudden somebody says to him, sweet. That's the secrets of the Torah, the godliness of the Torah, the life of the Torah. That's the honey of the Torah. Tami Torah, this is the tastes of the Torah. The same thing, milk. Is there anything more sweeter? Is there anything sweeter than honey? Milk. Milk is sweeter than honey. Mother's milk. You have a little baby, honey, it won't want honey. The sweetest thing to a baby is its mother's milk. That's the best thing in the world. Give it honey, no way, it's not going to eat it. Milk and honey are sweet. That's the reasons, the how do you say, the secrets of the Torah. V'hakol nimshach, and everything is drawn down from another level of eretz. This level of eretz and kisov masav machshavat tachila, because the land of Israel is the end of God's thought. That's what God wanted, the world, right? But in order to create the world, first of all, God had a plan, and the plan is machshavat tachila, was in God's thought first. And it was, listen, if you want to say that the world was created from the Big Bang Theory and all these things, I mean, you can say that 100%. You can say it. And probably you can make some sort of mathematical calculations that everything will work, right? That everything will work. But the fact of the matter is that the world was made by God. That's the fact. And the fact of the matter is, and that's what Judaism, at least Hasidic, is trying to wake up the Jews to realize, that God is creating the world all the time. In fact, time itself is a creation. God's creating everything all the time. But he started creating the world. He started time. Time began. There was no such thing as time. Time began 5,780, in a couple of days, it's going to be 83 years ago. Excuse me. So time and everything, it began back then. God created the world with an intention. Before there was time, before there was being, we want to call it, before there was anything, God had a plan for creating the world. A lot of the books of Hasidut deal with this. What was there before the world was created, before time, before? That's called God's thought. And that's the plan of creation. This plan of creation, that's the Torah. That's the secrets of the Torah. The world was created according to a plan, and that plan is called the Torah. The HaShana, it's impossible to understand the secrets of the Torah and the mysteries of the Torah unless you first of all know the Talmud, Torah Sheba'al Peh. You have to know the laws of the Torah in order to really understand the secrets of the Torah. There's some people that can understand logically. They can even write books. There's people that really read books, that they read the Zohar and they read these other things, and they can understand, the whole system. But that doesn't mean that they link in any way with the secrets of the Torah. All they do is they link with their intelligence, right? It's the same thing as them as like, Chinese history or something. To really link with the secrets of the Torah, a person has to, first of all, has to know the written Torah and the oral Torah, the Talmud, the laws. Come on, for instance, a melech. Let's take an example, a king. A king that builds a big building, a big palace, mafuar. You can't understand the king's wisdom, the ritzonim, what he wants from this building, until shigmor binyan, until that building is finished. Bishleimuso, on its end. Like you watch a movie, and what's the whole thing? All of a sudden, everything comes together in the end. You don't see the end. The whole, all the other parts of the movie don't make any sense. At least that's the way it used to be. I don't think I saw a movie. Who knows how long? But that's the way a king builds a building. You see this building going up, foundations going down 50 floors below, and all of a sudden they bring these big pillars and they're building. You don't understand what's going on. What does he want? When he finishes the whole thing, you realize this is what this is, right? You realize how amazing this thing is. Hine, behold, shleimus v'gomor hazeh, this final completion. When do we see the wisdom of the king? Is in the end. Maisu al pitora, the same thing with God. God's wisdom, great wisdom in creating the world, can only be seen by means of the Torah. The depth of the Torah, the depth of the world can only be seen when the Torah Ba'al Peh, when the Talmud is manifested into actual laws, Jews actually doing what God wants. Asher bo gila ritzonah, there is revealed God's will. Right? You get a person that knows all the Talmud and he knows all the Kabbalah and he writes books about Kabbalah, but he doesn't put on tefillin. He doesn't keep Shabbat. He doesn't eat kosher. What do I need that? I have all the ideas in my mind. Says the Rebbe, because you don't see the real true mystery of the whole thing, the wonder of it, until it comes to action. And the action, that's what's written, that's the oral Torah. That's the Talmud, brings it into action. The Therefore, this Talmud is also called the land of Israel, the land, because it brings it into action. And it's also called man because man is it's the manifestation of man. The actual action is what he does. How many times do we see people that they promise all sorts of things and they're great people and genius people, they write books, and when it finally comes to actually doing something, let's say you choose somebody to be the president of the United States, that genius, he writes books, he's the most amazing person, and then he comes to be the president and he just squanders all the money, he doesn't do anything he promised. Then you see who he is. Then you see who the person is. You can be the most convincing person in the world, right? And when you see who he really is, there was in the history of Judaism, I keep coming back to this, there was a person called Yerovam ben Navat. He was a genius, he was holy, he learned Torah, there was fire around him. It says that he was told by a prophet to be a king of Israel. He took the 10 tribes. When he took the 10 tribes, all of a sudden he went crazy. And he built golden calves and made everybody do idolatry. So and he's called a big sinner. But inside of him, his mind, it was a genius. His emotions, his love of God, who knows everything. When it came out the deed, that's the main thing. Ka'alpi Torah shebechtav, because if you only learn the written Torah, it's impossible to know any law clearly without the explanation of the Talmud, of the Gemara. Kamo drashas totafot. For instance, Jews put on, I told you, tefillin. Nowhere in the Torah does it say the word of tefillin. Nowhere in the Torah does it have the description what exactly tefillin are. That there are 2 boxes and the boxes have to be, the straps have to be black, and what parchments go in them and everything. Where do we learn that from? The word totafot in the Torah, and etc. How it is written in all the details. And therefore, the vav of the word dvash is joined with Hayom Hazeh Hashem to make these letters. Hayom Hazeh. Leo to be B'tziru Shem Yud Kei Vav Kei. That altogether it goes Yud Kei Vav Kei. You use the Yud Kei Vav Kei together. Let's see how it goes. 1 second. I don't know if this is going to come up by you. 1 second. Yeah, here we go. That's right. Oh, see it like this. I don't know if you can see this, but I can see it. So it says Vidvash Vav, and the next sentence is Hayom Hazeh Hashem. So I'm not like I said that the Yud over here is used. Yud, Hey, here's the Vav in the word Vidvash, and Hey. That's how it's supposed to be. All right, 1 minute. 1 minute here. Let's stop the share. We'll go back to the share. 1 second. Here we go. Okay. I'll answer your question. We'll finish this. Therefore, and therefore the Vav of the Vash is joined. Why? Because we're saying that this whole covenant that God makes with the Jewish people depends on the land of Israel, because it all has to be manifested in the physical world. That's the whole point. It has to be brought down. And we said that the land of Israel, that corresponds to the oral Torah, because the oral Torah also manifests it in the world. Kach yesh b'shana. Okay, the same thing it is in the world. There has to be the manifestation of God. So it is in time. Olam shana v'nefesh. Excuse me, I was in Hungary and I got a cold. We drove in this taxi. Anyway, the guy wouldn't turn off the air conditioner. He thought he was doing us a big favor. So he left it on at like 12 degrees. I said, will you turn it down? He said, oh yeah, sure. 13 degrees and then 14. Turn the cold. Okay. But olam kach yesh b'shana. Also the same thing is, the same way that there is manifestation of God in the world, which is the land of Israel, also there is in time. And that's Rosh HaShana. Therefore, we always read this Torah portion that we're reading now, right before Rosh Hashanah. Why? Ki hayom hazeh, that's what it says, hayom hazeh. Right, that was the sentence, hayom hazeh. This refers to Rosh Hashanah. Hayom hazeh, when it says this day, this special day, is the day of Rosh Hashanah. Okay, what is Rosh Hashanah? Jewish people celebrate this holiday, New Year's. The Jewish New Year's is the celebration of the birthday of Adam. Adam was created on the sixth day of creation. There is no other nation, religion, whatever is philosophy, cult that knows or cares exactly when the world was created. The Jewish people, the main thing about the Jewish people is the world, the physical world. It's very important to us to know when it was created, because then we can have a little bit of an idea why it was created. So why it was created was not really revealed until Rosh Hashanah. That was when man was created. God created all the heavens, the earth, the fish, and etc. And finally, on the sixth day, so God creates man and says, okay, man, you're here to tell the world why I'm creating the world. But Kol Shana, and every year before Rosh Hashanah, we read this Torah portion again because we have to renew this covenant with God. What's the covenant? On receiving the Torah. Because the whole world depends on the Torah, manifesting what God wants in this world. That's why one of the reasons why all the other religions are just lies, because they deny or they twist the Torah. Rosh Hashanah, then Rosh Hashanah, this is the day, Mitzavacha, God says, I command you to do all of these commandments. Because why? He says, we'll do the parentheses. Rosh Hashanah is the same thing as the oral Torah. Because in Rosh Hashanah, we make God a king on us. Malchut peh, Torah shabal peh. It says God's kingship. How does God rule the world? By his mouth, he speaks. God spoke, create the world. God is constantly speaking, creating the world. It says we become partners with God by means of Torah shabal peh, the oral Torah. That's why it's called the oral Torah, because we have to say it, the words. That becomes partners with God. Therefore, just like the oral Torah, this is the revelation of God's will, how we should make tefillin and a sukkah. Also the same thing, Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah is the revelation of God's will in the world. God wants the world. Therefore, on Rosh Hashanah, this is the idea of mitzvah lasot. Rosh Hashanah is the day when God commands us to do. The day that man was created. The whole purpose of man is to do what God wants. And therefore, it's called Rosh Hashanah. It's not called the beginning of the Shana. Why? Ki kamoshi is Rosh Benefesh, just like there's the head of a person, and a person's head is the head and the intellect in regarding the body. It directs the whole body. Kach also yesh bechinas Rosh. So there is also the idea of a head in time, the head of the year. Who Rosh Hashanah, and this is the day of Rosh Hashanah. That's the head of the year. And what we do on Rosh Hashanah, that sets the tone for the whole entire year, just like a head does. Also, that's what it says. I mean, usually we don't do the parentheses. The parentheses are excellent. The parentheses, they come from the Tzemach Tzedek, the third Rebbe of Chabad. Maybe we can do a little bit of the parentheses. Here, let's go. Ready? We did it before, and it was very helpful. Here. It says that the Rosh Hashanah is a head. This is like the skull that covers over the brains. In other words, what happens on Rosh Hashanah? God's will changes. We change God's will to create the world. This is the revelation of God's upper will. And there's a mimer, Tiku B'Chodesh, that's the idea of sounding the shofar. Just like written in the oral Torah, Torah Shabal Peh. This is what's called Bina Yetera, Nitna. There is given a special holy type of understanding. Also the same thing, there's fear of God. A person that genuinely fears God, he wants to do everything that God wants. You can only know what God wants from the Talmud. Usually the enemies of Judaism, the first thing they do is strike at the Talmud. They burn the Talmud, they change the Talmud, they negate the Talmud, they hate the rabbis of the Talmud. Even though the fear is also called feminine regarding love, Isha Yirat Hashem, a woman is connected more to the aspect of fear. The female aspect that's lower. It receives, like I said, Zachar Chazda, but nevertheless, the fear is the gate through which you can come to serve God. And it's the source of what's called the upper fear of God. The upper fear of God is like the Jews got at Mount Sinai, total negation. And so it is with speech. On Rosh HaShana, God finished speaking. That's the how do you say, the final touches on the world. That's the day that God created man, but it's also the day God created woman. And that's the building of Malchut. Malchut is God's mouth, so to speak, God's kingship. That's called the Word of God. The Word of God is the kingship of God. That's how God created. It says in the Bible, right? God created the world from His speech. Okay, now we're dealing with things over here that it takes a lot of faith to even approach these things, because they're not really understanding. You have to have faith that God exists and faith that God is creating the world. You have to have faith that God is creating the world according to a system, a process, and that He cares about the world and He's creating the world now. But on the other hand, this faith is very, very, how do you say, let me think of the word. It is very satisfying, because a person, they starts to think, where did the world come from? So you can come to two conclusions. One conclusion is that, three conclusions. One, I don't know, which is basically the conclusion of science, right? It came from the Big Bang, it came from this. I don't really know, right? But maybe we can know someday. Or you can come to the other conclusion that God creates the world and we can't know. It's impossible. You have to believe. You have to believe. Even though that in the end, science comes down that it also is based on belief, because they believe there was a belief, and then the whatever it is of evolution. Yeah, they believe in it. It's not that as much as they can, they prove it. We're talking about people, but the essence of a Jew is that he believes. The essence of a Jew is that he believes in God. And now we're saying, as soon as you open up this door, which is called the lower fear, and you start to believe in God, then you can start to really build a whole relationship with God. And that's the whole thing of Rosh HaShana. That's the idea of an extra understanding was given to the woman. That's what it says, Vayiven Hashem Elohim, that God built the rib of man to make a woman. This was on the 6th day of creation. This is Rosh Hashanah. So what's the Rebbe trying to explain over here? The Rebbe is trying to explain that God creates the world and He wants to be revealed in the world. And that's the whole entire idea of the Torah. The Torah is God showing us how to reveal Him in the world, and God Himself revealing Himself in the world. The Torah is God's revelation in the world. But the whole Torah is not usable. It's not practical if there's no Talmud to explain it. And the Talmud is also an aspect of God. That's like the woman that came from man. That's like God creating that's the same thing as the land of Israel, not leaving the Jews in the desert, bringing them into the land of Israel, manifesting His will in the physical world. That's what we have to do. And God willing, we'll learn in Chassidut, we'll learn how to do it. Okay. Let's